3, 2.
Filled with typical anime verb and vigor, we are furiously bringing you the week's anime info. You can see the passion in our faces. This is John,
Gene,
and the AnimeNation Weekly Podcast. Starting off this week with the news that the supposedly American-written Ninja Slayer light novel series will be getting an anime adaptation. Now, I say supposedly because the 12 so far volumes of Ninja Slayer novels were credited to American writers Bradley Bond and Philip Ninja Moritz. However, it's now come to light that these two folks don't actually exist. The books were supposedly American light novel style manga about cyber ninjas in Neo Tokyo, Neo Shinjuku, I believe it's set. However, it's now come to light that in fact the Japanese translators, Hanga Yu and Sigi Laika, are actually the real Japanese authors, but they credit themselves as translators. Now, these novels premiered back in 2012. I actually recall when they premiered because the translator at the time, who was translating Ash Jong articles, mentioned that he would possibly be interested in translating my book, because now these American novels had created a big splash in Japan, so other Japanese-style light novels by Americans might go over well in Japan. But they're not actually American, which would explain why nobody in America has ever heard of them. But this does mean we will be getting some sort of new anime about cyber ninjas running around in Japan. And for Americans, even though it's not American created, that can't be a bad thing.
Still a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Shingeki no Kyojin movies announced. Attack on Titan. Alright. Putting these into 2 feature films. And oh man.
The first film will be Shingeki no Kyojin Zenpen, Guren no Yumiya, or Attack on Titan Part 1, Crimson Bow and Arrow. That film will premiere at the end of this year, covering the first 13 episodes of the TV series. And then the second film, Shingeki no Kyojin Kyohen, Jio no Tsubasa, or Wings of Freedom, will be premiering probably in spring of 2015, maybe summer 2015, but relatively early, presumably, next year, covering episodes 14 to 25. Now, these films will coincide roughly with the tentative future Japanese release of the live-action Shingeki no Kyojin movie, which is already expected to be a massive blockbuster in Japan and possibly internationally, but we'll see. Considering how successful the anime and manga has already been, it's probably not too difficult to imagine the live-action picture going over pretty well, because you would assume that it's going to have a lot of production value, a lot of emphasis on making it a good film to live up to expectations. I guess we'll see.
So condensing the TV series into 2 films. So this reminds me of Escaflowne being condensed into a movie. Do you think?
Similar?
Yeah.
Now keep in mind, the Escaflowne movie was technically a new story. It was rewritten, sort of revised into a new story. However, this sort of condensing movies has been done a lot. For example, the first Space Cruiser Yamato movie condensed the first television series. The 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam TV series was condensed into the 3 original Gundam movies. The Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam got 3 movies. Turn A Gundam got condensed into 2 movies. So this sort of recap movie is pretty common. I don't think we've seen any relatively recently, but considering how phenomenally popular and successful Shingeki no Kyojin has been, it's really sort of a given that it would get theatrical films like this.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Gakumon announced. Senyu creator Robinson Harahara's brand new manga series Gakumen Akame Shoujo wa Kujikanai, Monster School Wolf Girl Won't Give Up, you might recognize, which just made its premiere this month, will receive a Flash anime adaptation. A web anime series from director Kenshiro Mori and Studio Morriken will premiere on Nico Nico on April 25th. Coming up.
Coming up. As I've mentioned numerous times before, it is by now an established convention that if you are a manga artist and you get one anime adaptation, you are almost guaranteed to get a second TV series as long as you have a second manga series to adapt. There are very, very few manga artists that have more than one series that only have one TV adaptation.
Such as? Think of one. Stump John?
The creator of Hellsing, it's not Yoshihiro Naitao because that's the creator of Trigun. I have completely forgotten the name of the creator of Hellsing.
We need a laptop here so we can look this up.
However, he does have multiple manga series, but Hellsing is the only adaptation so far. But outside of, for example, that one or a small handful of examples, pretty much any manga artist you can think of that has more than one manga series also has more than one adaptation. So, not surprising that the creator of Senyu, which got 2 TV series, will be getting another adaptation, even though the manga only has 1 chapter so far.
Alright.
So, yeah, that's your in. If you're a manga artist and you're successful enough to get an anime adaptation, you can look forward to another one.
And you're Japanese and you live in Japan.
Indeed. Funimation has picked up some new streaming acquisitions, which does not guarantee an American home video release, but most of the time does end up resulting in an American DVD and Blu-ray release. Funimation is already streaming the Selector Infected Weezos television series. They started streaming that a couple days ago. The show, coincidentally, is also streaming on also streaming on Crunchyroll, but not in North America. But Funimation will also be streaming this month's new Fairy Tail TV series, and will be streaming the Kenzen Robo Daimigala television series, the Giant Robots vs. Alien Penguins sex robot parody television series.
We don't have enough of that.
You can never have enough
just
sex and penguins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But while we know that we will be getting both of those shows streaming, we do not know for certain that we'll get them on Blu-ray disc. But considering they're coming from Funimation, pretty good chance that we'll be getting all 3 of those shows.
Combo pack.
In combo packs. Daimigala, the new Fairy Tail, and Weezos in the future. Probably next year, if I had my best guess. But since it's a new season starting this month, what Funimation has not picked up for streaming, Crunchyroll has, which includes...
Oh, sorry, I was daydreaming. I was thinking Fairy Tail I was trying to think of our top 5 or 10, popular series.
Like that. I'm sure Fairy Tail was among them.
It's up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Crunchyroll streams everything.
Basically.
Long Live, 2nd season, Blade & Soul, Ishikin Friends, Mushishi Zokujao. Did I say that right? Zokujao? I haven't watched it. Sordemo Sekai wa Utsukushi, Kenro no Korda Blue Sky, Kamagami, you did this just with me, didn't you? Kamagami no Asobi, Inagami-san to Nekayama-san, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure,
Both seasons.
Mm-hmm. Majin Bone, Fujimasu 2, and you mentioned Selector Infected.
And that's just so far what Crunchyroll has either started streaming or will be simulcasting this month. So there's a pretty good chance that unless it's ridiculously obscure, if it's starting on Japanese TV this month, Americans like us will probably have an opportunity to see it. Now that does not mean that we get absolutely everything. For example, last season, Inu Neko Hour did not get streamed in America. However, how many people besides me care? Probably very, very few. So basically, we'll probably be getting just about everything. If you do happen to prefer slightly older shows, as in older than a week old, and you prefer having your titles on disc, we would certainly encourage you to pick up some of the new releases this week from here at AnimeNation, including the Ebi 10, Ebi Sigala Public High School television series from Sentai Filmworks on your choice of either Blu-ray or DVD.
Oh.
You figured we would
Suck
cut
at
this down by now. We've been doing this a long
suck at
time.
this. Happiness Complete Collection from Made in Japan.
Funimation this week brought us the third Americanized complete season of Dragon Ball Z on Blu-ray.
Princess 9, Complete Collection, Nozomi.
And from Nozomi's adult affiliate Critical Mass, the complete first Angel Blade television series, now in one, Angel Blade OVA series, now in one complete collection. So that's all 3 of the original OVA episodes. Does not include Angel Blade Returns, however, which technically is still a Kitty Media Blasters license, even though we haven't seen any copies of it anytime recently.
I thought it was Punish.
Punish.
I thought it didn't. I thought
Yes,
it
it
was Angel
returns.
Blade. Yeah, you did. It was Angel Blade and Returns. I think Punish is the Media Blasters one.
Punish is the
It's
second
not in this
series,
collection. Okay.
which is owned by Kitty Media. So this will include the original, because if you're not aware of how this originally worked out, Central Park Media acquired the 3-volume Mamoru Obari Angel Blade adult anime series. But even though it was 3 episodes, it was released on 2 DVDs. The first DVD, for some reason, had 2 episodes. The second DVD had 1 episode on it. Strange formatting. You would figure it would either be 3 DVDs or 1 DVD. But they threw us for a loop. When Central Park Media expired, the rights were picked up by Right Stuff International, which then re-released those exact 2 discs in the same 2-disc format. However, now it's being re-released, so you get all 3 episodes in one release.
And it's much cheaper.
Yes, so much cheaper. And definitely, if this is not in your adult anime collection yet, definitely one worth picking up, because you're probably aware there is a tremendous variation and stratification in the quality of adult anime. While this may not be Bible Black, it ranks up there. This is definitely one of the very best of the adult anime titles available to us.
It's a classic.
Ebi 10, not so much a classic, but what's amusing about it is that it references classics. Ebi 10 was originally a web anime series which then got TV broadcast. It's a relatively obscure school comedy show, but what's unique about it, especially for very, very diehard otaku, is that each episode chooses a classic anime to parody. For example, the entire first episode is a schoolgirl parody of Saint Seiya. The second episode is a schoolgirl parody of giant monster classic movies like Godzilla and Gamera. There is an episode in which the entire episode is a parody of Fist of the North Star. So if you're a fan of vintage Japanese franchises and like to see them parodied, played up, then Ebi 10 is exactly what you're looking for. However, if you're a relatively new fan, you're probably just not going to get the jokes, which is why the show didn't really go over very well among American fandom. But there's certainly a variety of fans, a school of fans out there that will really appreciate Ebi 10. Happiness, it's the show that brought us Jun, the trap. So if you're familiar with that concept, the girl who's really pretty but actually isn't a real girl, that really did get popularized by the school drama comedy Happiness. So even though it's several years old now, it's finally available in America. Princess 9, girl baseball anime. We don't get very many of those. This was previously an AD Vision release. It's been out of print for a number of years, so now we get it back in circulation again, which is certainly nice. People frequently call this sort of like the anime version of A League of Their Own, which may also be a dated reference, which no one remembers. But for those of you that get that Madonna reference, she was in that, right?
She was in
Davis
that.
and Madonna.
Yeah, Tom Hanks and
yes.
what's her name? Had a talk show.
Okay.
Hey.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of large.
Plus size.
Yes.
Plus size gal.
Okay. Not exactly my demographic, so I also... Was that Rosie O'Donnell?
Rosie
O'Donnell.
Thank you.
All right, another dated reference.
Stop drinking in the afternoon.
Really. So, a new season of TV anime has started. I have not had as much free time lately to catch up on all of it as I'd like to, but I have had some opportunity. I did watch the first episode of Majin Bone, which is a title difficult to say without laughing. The first episode is a very, very conventional, younger boy shonen adventure title. I don't anticipate that it's going to be tremendously successful, but it does have the typical interesting, moderately interesting character personalities that you would expect out of a show like this. And it does have a cliffhanger ending, which is just barely interesting enough to get me sort of curious about the second episode. But I anticipate that this will be a title which will probably go over pretty well in Japan, and not so much over here. The first episode of Blade and Soul, based on the Korean MMO, is very, very comparable, ostensibly, to Queen's Blade. However, in effect, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit darker, a little bit more serious, definitely a little bit more violent and bloody than Queen's Blade, which is positive, depending on what you're looking for. It also lacks a little bit of the character, especially in the characters themselves, a little bit of the personality that typifies Queen's Blade. So it's not quite as fun as Queen's Blade, but if you want something darker and more violent than Queen's Blade, then this may be exactly what you're looking for. This is the first conventional otaku-oriented gonzo anime production in several years. At times, it does show those old-school, really elaborate, very attractive gonzo production values. At times, the first episode falls a little bit short. But then again, with a title like this, it will probably find its niche audience regardless of how good or bad it is. Happened to watch the first episode of Keroro, the new Flash anime version of Keroro Gunso. It's a little odd. The Flash animation, to me, looks a little bit flat. The backgrounds especially look a little bit sparse. But it's also cuter, just a little bit, than the original Keroro Gunso anime was, and that creates a certain appeal to it. So, I think that this is a good reboot for people who aren't familiar with Keroro Gunso, and I think it's unique enough that it will probably hold the attention of long-term Keroro Gunso fans. Anything going on with you lately, before I go into more monologuing?
Not really. Been too busy to watch anything, really. A lot of conventional TV.
Some of you that follow detailed anime news may recall that a week or two ago, the Japanese pop vocalist Neo Ieri released her new album, which was especially unique for its first single, Boy, having a Jungle Emperor, Jungle Taitei, Kimbo the White Lion music video. This was the first time that Jungle Emperor had ever appeared in a non-Jungle Emperor anime. Well, listening to a sample of that song got me a little bit interested, so I went out and dug up Leo Ieri's first two albums, Leo and A Boy, and I'm pleased that I've actually found a new musical artist that I'm very interested in. This does not happen to me very often. I don't actually listen to a tremendous variety of music, and most of the vocalists and groups that I've listened to are ones that I've been listening to for decades.
80 years.
Yes. For example, last weekend I went out and saw Night Ranger in concert.
Ooh.
So that tells you how dated my taste in music is.
2-year-old.
But I found myself very, very enthused by Leo Ieri's first two albums. Her first album, it sounds a little bit rough because she was very young. I think she was 19 at the time it was recorded. The second album is a little bit more rounded, a little bit more sophisticated, so I prefer the second album slightly. But I do find that I actually like all of the songs, every one of them, on both of these albums, quite a bit. So I'm quite pleased by that. I'm also pleased that some of you may know that apart from my work here at AnimeNation, I also teach English at the local St. Petersburg College. I'm this semester teaching a Composition 2 Introduction to Literature class, and with permission of my department head, I was allowed to teach the first handful of pages, roughly the first 10 pages, of my novel manuscript to my class this past Wednesday. So I think my class enjoyed the writing, the introduction to the novel. I tremendously appreciated being able to talk about something that's very personal to me, and I certainly appreciated some of the sadly minimal feedback that I got from my students. But my novel that I've been working on for a long time now, to varying degrees of efficiency, is coming along, and I'm hoping to have it in roughly a final version pretty soon, which I'm intending to release portions of publicly through AnimeNation for public consumption and evaluation before it hopefully sees print next year. So, for those of you that have followed my progress for a long time, you may not have heard me mention this fiction manuscript that I've been writing lately. I am still working on it, so it has not been completely abandoned. Just has been a little under the radar personally lately and publicly lately. But that will soon change.
I'm excited.
Because I have been busy, particularly with Night Ranger concerts and teaching English at St. Petersburg College, you will probably have noticed that I've been a little bit lax on my responsibilities to the AnimeNation news page and the Ask John column. That, I admit, is my own fault, so it's reasonable to expect people to not submit questions if I'm not answering them as frequently as I once did. However, this past week I received absolutely 0 Ask John questions.
So suck it, fans.
So, tentatively, I will have very little to put up next week. So, if you do have any sort of curiosity or input, anything you'd like my reactions to, my comments on regarding anime, feel free to send them my way. As always, I will make a diligent effort to respond, and I will make, as often as possible, attempt to get articles on the AnimeNation news page and Ask John articles up. So, I apologize for my belated writing on the AnimeNation page, but I am trying, and your participation will contribute to me trying.
You're fired. What else you got?
That's largely it for this week.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, I got it.
as usual, we're always eager in hearing what you've got. We're always eager in collecting your money and delivering excellent anime goods to you. So we hope that you'll tune back in, either audio or audio-visually, next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.